Transformers media has been unbelievably disappointing over the past few years. Rise of the Beast was a dumpster fire, IDW Comics died a slow, protracted death like that guy Austin Powers ran over, and Earthspark failed to please anybody outside the absolute fringes of the fandom. Hasbro may have scored a home run with the ongoing Skybound comics, but even that won't rake in the cash the way a new blockbuster film could. In comes Transformers One, the latest Transformers event to grace the silver screen, exploring the origins of the Autobots, their tireless battle against the Decepticons, and the tragic tale of two brothers turned mortal enemies. In the midst of the franchise's 40th anniversary, is this film worthy enough to lead the Transformers into the next decade? Welcome back to the show, it's Gay from A.
How long do you think we'll be here? I'm not talking to you.
It'd be an understatement to say that I've been very skeptical of TF1 since the beginning. A new animated film about Transformers who don't transform? Directed by Josh Cooley, aka the guy who plopped a steaming dookie all over the Toy Story franchise?
I guess that's why they call me Stinky Pete.
I was all but certain this thing was dead in the water. I would have put more faith in Jim Jones than into this movie. The film follows Orion Pax and D16, two kinda gay best friends who embark on a mission to locate the fabled matrix of leadership, alongside their fellow miners, the plucky B-127 and the no-nonsense Elita-One. Oh shit, I hope the matrix isn't at Diddy's house.
Miners! Those are miners!
But beyond the idyllic safety of Iacon, the four uncover dark secrets and realize their world has more to it than meets the eye. It's not terribly complex, and a decent primer for young fans who wouldn't otherwise be familiar with the Transformers. The movie remixes certain norms we expect from the franchise, giving this universe its own sense of identity, but clearly borrows notable elements from other series like Animated, Beast Machines, but primarily the Aligned and IDW continuities, so older fans aren't left in the dark either. As I alluded to before, one of the film's principal changes is that our main cast cannot transform. That's like making a Ghostbusters movie where they don't bust on any ghosts. Early leaks had me believing they were discovering the ability to transform, and I really hated the idea of the main characters establishing the mechanics of the series. In truth, our main characters are simply unable to for story and thematic reasons, and it really isn't as unreasonable as I initially thought it was. Now, unlike other Transformers films, this one actually focuses on the characters. Orion Pax is this ambitious but short-sighted hotshot, a far cry from the usually reserved and soft-spoken Optimus Prime. Despite these unusual circumstances, though, the movie takes Pax on a rather cliched hero's journey, which isn't unexpected, but does make for some emotionally disjointed character development. I think Hemsworth does okay as Orion Pax, but I don't understand why they wouldn't pick an American to play this role if they insisted on Pax having an American accent. You can barely tell whose voice this is except when he's yelling. If only there was another well-known Chris in Hollywood with a bassy voice, who was in Marvel flicks, who didn't have an Australian accent, who could be a big audience draw for this movie. Like Chris Pratt.
It's a me. Amaria.
D16 is definitely the breakout character of this film, and an interesting take on a younger version of Megatron. He and Orion share both humble beginnings and a knack for heroism, with D16 coming off as a little more cautious and, of all things, a bit nerdy. Most of the first act is spent establishing their thrilling friendship, with D16 often becoming an unwilling participant in many of Orion's reckless schemes. His downward trajectory borrows many of its beats from the classic Megatron origin story, and while his eventual fate isn't much of a surprise, his motivations are very personal and shockingly sympathetic. My only complaint is that the movie speedruns his character development in the second half, which doesn't really detract from Brian Tyree Henry's excellent portrayal of D16 or his gruff evolution into Megatron.
You need to move out of my way before I move you myself.
B-127 was the main comic relief in this film, and unfortunately, he is every bit as annoying as he seemed in the trailers. While there were some decent jokes throughout the movie, most of them didn't come from B. They should have had me on the writing staff, because I would have made Bumblebee say the fart word. Keegan-Michael Key does a good job making Bumblebee sound particularly playful and upbeat, but his voice is almost too distinct and kind of distracting.
Oh, I got a battle mask!
Elita-One definitely definitely girl bosses her way through most of this movie. She takes on a somewhat antagonistic role early on, being the unwitting straight man in the face of Orion and D16's various antics. Scarlett Johansson was competent in this role, but isn't given much to do outside of a few action scenes and this clunky pep talk she gives in the third act. Not gonna lie, I was down bad for her throughout this movie though. The usher had to peel me out of my seat like I was Pee Wee Herman. I would speak more about the rest of the cast, but I can't say much without dipping into spoilers. Many of the other named characters come off as one note though, which almost makes it a waste to even introduce most of them. But it is fun to keep a lookout for the various cameos littered throughout the movie. Transformers 1 tackles a number of themes in its less than 2 hours runtime, ranging from deep personal questions about beliefs and self-actualization to broader questions regarding class, race, and society. Now, I'm not one of those internet retards who construes any politically thematic piece of media as woke. All art is political, just like everybody poops, but I'm really glad this movie's ideas were expressed purposefully to serve the story and not ham-fistedly presented to the audience for cheap praxis. Which is another way to say that this movie isn't childish. The original trailer was stuffed with jokes and quips which rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way, unlike your mom. So much so that Joshua Cooley himself had to come out and clarify. While the film definitely has its lighthearted moments, it also takes the time to be serious. So although the movie is primarily intended for a younger audience, it doesn't pull punches with its content or feel immature, which I really appreciated. The fact that I could speak mostly positively about Transformers 1 shows that despite my initial skepticism, I ultimately enjoyed this movie. I think it was fun, it had some fresh ideas, and it created a self-contained jumping on point for new fans. Plus, it treats the Transformers like characters, which is a big ask when it comes to Hollywood features. I'm not gonna overhype this movie though. Certain parts of the script should have been tighter. I would have liked to see more depth given to the side characters, and the character development we did see could have used more time to breathe. That said, I hope a sequel maintains this sincerity toward the Transformers, and please keep Lorenzo and his grubby little hand sausages as far away from this series as possible. Gayformay gives Transformers 1 3.5 Mays out of 5, but let me know what you piglets think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.